The Bell telephone system brings you another of its series of programs on science. Man's effort to understand nature's laws.
The story of language is the story of man. For the thoughts, the aspirations, the affections of long generations of humanity are woven into the fabric of human speech.
That's the way it begins. Story of language all over the world. Sounds of human speech, like the very air we breathe, or something most of us take just for granted.
Where did you hide the paper?
Now, David, you run right upstairs and wash. And don't forget to brush your teeth.
You'd hardly think of our everyday speech as being a specimen for scientists to take apart piece by piece, to study, to analyze. But this is a science, the science of linguistics. There are perhaps many ways to tell this story. We've chosen to tell it through the imagination of the young lady who lives in this house. Now, as you will see, she's head over heels in linguistic problems of her own. And she might call it
preposition to end a sentence with. Why shouldn't participles dangle? Why does it have to be so many different words? Words, words, words! Words, words.
How'd you do? I'm the Mad Hatter.
Why, of course. My name is Judy.
And you're in trouble, word trouble. But we are going to help you. Judy, this is Jabberwock.
How do you do?
'Tis brillig. How mimsy. How do you do?
Why does he talk that way?
Because he's the Jabberwock and talks Jabberwocky.
What are you two doing out of the Alice in Wonderland book?
We're going to free all the people enslaved by words. We are going to do away with the alphabet.
Take vorpal sword and told you to rub out the words.
Words are awfully confusing. Sometimes there's no rhyme or reason to them at all.
Good. You may join our conspiracy. Here, take a note. Judy will lead the letters into trap. Go on. Go on. I'll take care of the capital letters. You may take care of the little ones.
Hello, Judy.
Who's he?
He's a professor of linguistics.
Linguistics?
Well, Judy, what are you doing?
We're going to do away with the alphabet.
We're going to murder the language.
Which one? There are at least 5,000 different languages in the world. There are a few of the dictionaries. Where would you like to start?
What's he do? Speak all kinds of languages?
He doesn't just speak them. He's a scientist of language.
A science of language?
Oh, yes. He studies the insides of language. Sounds and words and alphabets and...
Alphabets. Is he for them or against them?
Well, there's some things to be said in favor of alphabets.
Name one.
The alphabet is the basis of writing, for one.
Then let's get the man who invented the alphabet.
Yes, I'd like to meet him.
I'm afraid that would be a bit difficult, because people have been writing for 5,000 or 6,000 years.
Why, that's centuries.
Yes, Judy, it is. The people have been talking for a long time. If this ruler represents the time man has been talking, he's been writing only this long. But even today, in many areas of the earth, large numbers of people, millions of them, still get along without writing.
If they get along, why should they bother to learn?
Well, they can't learn to write, most of them, because they have no alphabet.
No alphabet.
But as civilization began to spread over the earth, people realized spoken language alone has its limitations. They were learning so much they couldn't remember it all. You might say, Judy, that's why writing was invented.
Then that must be why we have whole libraries full of books, because people wanted to write down for other people what they thought and what they did.
Pity.
People were talking to each other long before there was anything like civilization. Scientists don't know exactly how it all got started, but once on the move, speech grew like a great tree, with branches joining its limbs, branches growing out of other branches, branches running up into twigs, each a spoken language that was the source of still other languages, and each changing as it went along and developed, until 5,000 or more known languages spread through the ages. Even now, languages are continually changing, new ones springing from old ones, sometimes several from a single source.
Latin was very important, wasn't it?
Oh, yes, it certainly was. What we call the Romance languages all branched off from the great trunk of Latin. There's Italian, Sardinian, Spanish and Portuguese, Dalmatian and Romanian, Catalan and French Provençal, Rito Romance, and if you listen, you'll hear a certain similarity.
Padre, Père, Papa, Tata, Papai. They all do talk something alike.
Well, Judy, would you be interested to know that at a certain time of their lives, babies all over the world speak the same language?
Oh, just a moment. I know better than that. What about Chinese babies and Indian babies, German babies, French babies, and American babies?
Well, now just listen to the language that all those babies speak. Now, here's a typical baby.
Isn't this one rather young to talk?
All babies in the world have the same, well, baby language to start with. The same babbling, if you like. But this babbling includes the sounds needed to make any language.
I didn't think baby talk really meant anything.
Oh, baby babbling is very important. When a baby first comes into the world, the speech areas of his brain are like a clean slate, ready to be written upon. From the very moment of birth. With every sound a baby makes, he is producing, you might almost say practicing, the basic sounds of speech.
Then he learns to talk just by practicing.
Not entirely. Through the first year, the child listens to his parents and copies as closely as he can what he hears, winning their approval when he makes the right sounds. Then the sounds begin to take shape. And by the age of 6, the speech pattern is complete.
It's Daddy. Hello, Daddy. Babies all start with the same sounds, and then they just keep the ones that fit their language. I think I'll make a note of that.
You might also make a note that we have a conspiracy to get on with. Shall we go?
Oh, yes, that conspiracy to do away with the alphabet. May I ask a question?
What is it?
Why do you want to get rid of the alphabet?
It's language we're after, really. The letters of the alphabet are the building blocks of language.
That's a beautiful statement.
Thank you, Judy.
Very well put, but hardly scientific.
Professional jealousy.
If I wanted to do away with language, what I would go after would be sounds, because sounds are the basis of any language.
Sounds. Make a note of that. I suppose the next thing you're going to say is there's a science of sound.
Well, as a matter of fact, there is. For a long time, scientists have been curious about how our human sounds are actually made. In the course of such a study, Professor Wolfgang von Kempelen invented the world's first talking machine.
Make a note to get from Kempelen.
That was in the 18th century, around 1780.
Cross him off, we're too late.
Here's a drawing of von Kempelen's machine when the professor completed it.
I wouldn't even know how to begin to build a talking machine.
What are you doing, Judy?
I'm trying to imagine how the professor figured it all out.
Before a talking machine could be built, the professor had to do a scientific study of just how the human speech mechanism works.
Lungs, vocal cords, mouth, palate, nasal cavities. For speech, you need air. The chest muscles, acting as a bellows, operate to fill our internal bagpipe, the lungs, with air. Next, you need noise. Read from a bagpipe. That will do. Now we build the machine.
While our friend is busy, let's look at some recent motion pictures of the human vocal cords in action. These films were made by the Gould Foundation Voice Research Laboratory at Northwestern University. You see, human noise is produced by the vocal cords, encased in the larynx or Adam's apple. Air from the lungs is released through a space between the cords, causing them to flap apart and slap together. These vibrations set up sound waves. Now, by slowing down the action with high-speed photography, we can see that the pitch of sound is varied by tightening or relaxing the pull on the vocal cords. Tightening them raises the pitch. Relaxing them lowers it. Effective as they are, the vocal cords are only the source of noise. It's the rest of the speech mechanism that shapes the sound into meaningful words. Now, what the professor had to understand to make his machine work was precisely how the tongue, teeth, lips, and so forth operate.
Ah, E, O. Vowels. And now, consonants. B, 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 Z, The breath explodes, it buzzes, it hums. The machine is finished. And now, demonstration.
Why, the machine spoke French. It said, "You are my friend."
Von Kempelen's machine was quite remarkable for 1780. for it was the world's first successful talking machine. But scientists today have the benefit of techniques undreamed of in von Kempelen's time. In these X-ray films of the human speech mechanism in action, you can see the tongue and lips assuming various positions to form cavities that modify the sound by resonance.
Who will give a needle, a mouse, a cat, and a bird to my father?
The sound of the different vowels depends on the height to which the tongue is raised in the mouth. High, mid, or low. It also depends on the position of the tongue in the front or back of the mouth. Consonants are shaped by tongue, lips, teeth.
Who will give a needle, a mouse, a cat, and a bird to mother?
This has been very educational, Jabber. We don't have to bother with the alphabet. All we've got to do is get rid of those vowels and consonants, and our job is done.
I hate to disappoint you fellows, but what really come out of the human speech mechanism are phonemes. P-H-O-N-E-M-E-S, phonemes. The basic sounds of speech.
Don't even make a note of that, Judy. He's just trying to throw us off the track. Come on, Jabber. We've got plans to make.
It is confusing. I guess I better ask you, what is a phoneme?
Phoneme is a sound.
Like A, B, C?
No, they're letters of the alphabet. They're units of writing. No alphabet for any language truly represents the sounds of that language. Let me borrow your pad. Sit down and I'll show you. Now, let's take this word.
Either.
Now, this word has 5 phonemes. If I say it slowly, e, you can hear the 5 parts.
But some people say either. Can you say either, either, or either?
Either, either, or either. As your friend the Hatter's already said, the alphabet can be very confusing. Different pronunciations are sometimes spelled in the same way. That's why scientists had to develop more accurate symbols. Now, in phonemes, either is written this way. E, And either is written like this. Ah, E,
The difference is the first little phoneme.
That's right. Now, scientists such as Ferdinand de Saussure in France discovered that out of the thousands of speech sounds a human being can make, each language has picked its own set of phonemes. English, for instance, has 45.
Then those little phoneme sounds must really be the building blocks of language. I better make a note of that for the Hatter. But for myself, I better just stick to the alphabet.
We have a proposal. If we can prove that it's possible to communicate without words, to say nothing of phonemes, will you give up your linguistic obsession and join our conspiracy?
Science is always open to experimental evidence.
Good.
One, two, buckle my shoe. 3, 4, shut the door. Why, I understood him perfectly.
If we can win over science, the alphabet is as good as dead. Well, Dr. Linguistics, do you concede that we have made a point?
Yes, indeed. As a matter of fact, I think we can substantiate your point further. I think you'll find this very interesting, Judy. You know, many people in the world have used, some people still use, unspoken communication.
Doctor! Oh, Dr. Linguistics.
Would you fellows be so good as to turn these cranks? In the interests of science. This is one of the Canary Islands, La Gomera, off the west coast of North Africa, a land of rugged terrain. In the sparsely populated areas, people found it difficult to communicate with one another across the deep gorges. So, long ago, the Gomeras contrived an extraordinary form of telephonic speech, whistling, which can be understood over a distance of 3 miles.
You mean they whistle in Spanish?
In a way, the consonants and vowels are represented entirely by differences in pitch. This whistling language is of great interest to linguistic scientists because it makes use of only one feature of normal speech, pitch. It does without all the variations of tone quality that Professor von Kempelen was so concerned about. Now, whereas this Canary Island whistling language is based on vowels and consonants, certain native tribes of the African jungle have a drum language based on the syllables of words.
Why, I never thought of a drum talking syllables.
The drum language of the Congo broadcasts every syllable of the words of a message through the changing rhythmic patterns of drum beats. If a man were to shout, "A leopard is stalking our village," he might use only 3 syllables of his spoken tongue. But in drum language, he would need at least a dozen or more drum beats to convey this urgent message. Another ingenious form of language was invented in the North American plains.
Indian Sign Language.
When tribes met on the trail, hunted buffalo together, or met in council, wasn't time enough to learn one another's language, so they used sign language instead. Here's a Sioux storyteller using hand talk to tell the famous story of the Battle of Washita. The white soldiers told the Indians, "If you camp beside the river, called the Lodgepole River, before the snow, there'd be no more fighting," and that made all the Indians very happy.
Excuse me for interrupting, but I was just wondering how the Indians managed to talk with their hands in the dark.
Well, they couldn't, Judy. As you can see, all of these methods are limited. The great advantage of language is its versatility, giving man limitless possibilities for expressing his ideas, his concepts of science and technology, his day-by-day thoughts, his feelings, his emotions, love.
Don't be taken in by those scientific sophistries. Do animals have alphabets? Do they have words? And animals can, without any words at all, quote, communicate from the moment of birth. And they've gotten along for millions of years without any words at all, haven't they?
Oh, yes, indeed they have. Would you fellows please oblige? Now, look. There's a crow. When man invades the forest, he's the first to shout, "Beat it." Then all the other birds, animals, pass on the alarm. Not only birds and animals get along without words, but insects as well. The most incredible of all is the dance of the honeybee. When a worker bee finds a flower full of nectar, it flies back to the hive to announce the discovery. This urgent message is communicated by performing a dance. The pattern of the dance indicates the direction of the flowers in relation to the sun. The speed of the dance tells the distance from the hive. The other bees all take notice. They touch the dancer with their antennae to discover the scent of the flowers. Then they all fly out to the source of the nectar. Animals and insects have many ingenious ways of communicating. Sounds, smells, with motion. We find in all this communication that the animal mind operates almost automatically. It receives messages from the outside through its sense organs and reacts instinctively.